Stop jumping on me. Why are you doing that?
Having a bad dog day?
Rex, come back here.
From police dogs to pet dogs, from potty training to pet peeves, #1 best-selling author and 30-year canine trainer Andy Falco knows how to get to the meat of what's eating your dog. This is Falco Canine Dog Talk, the show that helps you and your dog create a relationship of love and respect.
What a good boy. Good heel, Rex. I love you, Rex.
And now here's your host, Andy Falco.
Hello and welcome to Falco Canine Academy's Train the Dog Trainer program and Falco Canine Dog Talk. How do you like our opening and our outro? Some years ago I had that created for our podcast called Falco Canine Dog Talk. I figured it fit in here until I have a new one made just for simply train the dog trainers. So, but I think it still works. It still describes the need to have a trainer that can help somebody with their love-hate relationship with their dog so that they have a more loving relationship and respectful relationship with their dog in the end. And I think that that's what the point is, obviously, of my intro and outro. And it works, and they did a really good job. So really happy with that. So at some point, I'll create a new one for Train the Dog Trainer, but for right now, I think that it applies fairly well. It just doesn't say Train the Dog Trainer in it. So I know that there's possibly somebody going, oh, you know what, I didn't hear it say Train the Dog Trainer in there. It doesn't seem like a very accurate opening. Well, there you go. There's the story, and that's why I like it, because I think it works. All right, so there's a couple things that we're going to talk about today, and the first is, it's really about human personalities that you're going to have to deal with. And understanding them, and understanding, one, that if you do a search on Google, if you put in personality types, you're going to get there's about 16 personality types. And what I want to address first is that I think it's important. Now, you will learn over time a lot about dogs and their personalities and the difference between one breed over the next, and really begin to understand, that aspect of being a dog trainer is recognizing and understanding aggression and fear and rank and guarding and protection and possessiveness and all the things that go along with it. And you're going to get really good at that. I think it's equally as important because, remember, in the last podcast I talked about that the human is the most important aspect of this business of training dogs, even more so than the dog themselves. And it is extremely important. So I think that you need to put as much effort into learning about the personality traits of the dog into understanding the personalities of the human beings that they're connected with, because you get so many different combinations. If you get an aggressive dog with a very wishy-washy person who's weak in strength and weak in personality, it's going to go horribly wrong. And then that may be the time that you step in and say, listen, I think you just got the wrong dog. If you have a really strong personality of a person who's strong in physical and strong in their personality, and then with a really soft dog that pees on himself all the time because of his nervousness and fearness, you need to understand that right away, that how that is going to be a very difficult thing to deal with in regard to training. And so I think it's as important, and again, even more important, to understand the human than it is the dog. All right, so that's one. Number two, there's a couple of different things you can look at, and that is, again, the 16 personality types, which I think is too many, but you should know it. You shouldn't look at everybody out of these 16 necessarily. It just depends on who you are, what your personality trait is. I'm going to try to put some links in the description of this podcast that you can click on that will allow you to take a test to find out who you are in regard to the 5 personality traits that we're going to talk about in actuality. But let me just point out the 16 personality traits that if you go and do a Google search, you'll probably come across. And they're important to visit, to learn, to read. But I'm going to narrow it down to just 5 in another type of study that is done. All right, so here are the 16. The duty fulfiller, the mechanic, the nurturer, the artist, the protector, the idealist, the scientist, the thinker, the doer, the guardian, the performer, the caregiver, the inspirer, the giver, the visionary, the executive. And so just by their names, you can right away pretty much understand what type of person that is. If you hear the word nurturer, you know that it's somebody that's kind and conscientious. They're dependent on follow through from people. You can depend on them usually because they're nurturers. They're very stable and practical and all those things. If I were to talk about the, let's go down to the executive, assertive and outspoken. A visionary is creative and resourceful. So you can see that you can identify people quite often, fairly quickly, in one of these 16. And again, I think they're important to know and you should study them. But I'm going to make it a little bit easier, and I'm going to give you the 5 facets, or the 5, what do they call it? Hold on. The 5 personality traits that you find, I think, a little bit more often at the University of Utah, University of Virginia, Michigan State. There's professors over there that did a write-up that you'll probably find. It's in NOBA, N-O-B-A. Talks about these 5 personality traits. And the acronym is OCEAN. That's how you're going to remember what they are. OCEAN stands for openness, a personality that has openness. Another one that's conscientiousness, extraversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So OCEAN stands for those 5 personality traits. Now, it is going to be either easier or difficult to work with somebody as a customer if they have one of these traits over another. All right, so let's visit. I'm going to go out of order of OCEANs, and we're going to out of order a little bit, but you got consciousness. Somebody who has the consciousness personality trait of competence, order, dutifulness, achievement, striving, self-discipline, deliberation. They love to complete tasks successfully, which if you have a system like ours where homework is mandatory and they must follow through, this person who has the consciousness personality trait is going to be one of your best customers, especially if they have a lot of consciousness in their personality. They like order. If you are not orderly in the way you conduct class, there's where you may have your difficulty. If it's just helter-skelter and kind of random in what it is you're doing, then you may lose this type of person. They like to follow rules, which is good. I have rules that I give in our handouts when people decide to hire us on what it is they can and cannot do. They often work hard, which is good. They're good at training, and so they're a good example for other people that are lazy. They get chores done right away, and they try to avoid mistakes. So the thing about that is they can take a little bit of time. So they're a little bit slower because they're avoiding making a mistake. But I think that's good. I think that's a good trait to have. On the opposite, the reason I'm going out of order is to kind of give you the complete opposites. You have neuroticism. Now, you've met, I'm sure, a few neurotic people. Maybe you're neurotic. I don't know. But it's somebody that's filled with anxiety, hostility, depression, self-consciousness, impulsiveness, vulnerability, and those can be difficult, right? And those are people that have a dog who's strong and nasty or fearful. You don't want fearful with fearful, or else you got a lot of fear and you got a lot of issue, right? And so you need to identify these people right away when you're dealing with a dog that has the same type of personality. They worry about things. They get angry easily. They often feel blue. You know, those people walk into training, oh, I barely woke up, and they're often late because they're going, oh, I got to go to training. Those are probably somebody that has some of this neuroticism in their personality. They're easily intimidated. So those people you may need to talk slightly differently, or else, again, you're going to lose them. The whole idea is keeping people in your class so they follow through with the program. If we're talking about a group obedience class, it could be 7, 8, 10 weeks, and you don't want to be so intimidating in the beginning that they don't want to return, right? It's very easy to intimidate them out of the class, unless you want to intimidate them out of the class, right? They often eat too much, and they panic easily. And so if you have, again, a dog that's aggressive and they're coming into a group environment, they can panic in that situation, and it can go horribly wrong. So identifying those people early so that you can maybe meet them at their car as they're getting out with their dog who has some aggression, and try to not get to that place of panic that they can get to if they get easily panicked, is understanding their neurotic person. and knowing who they are and what type of dog they have and what it is they're doing. And then we move into extroversion. They're warm people, they're gregarious. Assertiveness is shines through or shows through. They like a lot of activity. They excitement seeking, positive emotions. I like these kind of people myself. I tend to be, I think, a little bit of an extrovert. We tend to make friends easily, love large parties, take charge. I'm always busy, love excitement, and radiate joy. I don't know if I radiate joy, but I like to have a good time, so maybe I do. And so these are people to have in class. They're good to have a mix of those. You don't have too many because too many extroverts can cause you to lose focus. It can cause other people to lose focus because they're too much. And you need to know how to handle people that are extroverts. There are some people that just need attention, and you need to sometimes back them down just a little bit and say, okay, there's a time for this, but right now I need you to listen. I know that you find yourself very funny, but right now we need to focus on what it is we're doing. And so you need to be a take charge type of person and take charge when you have too many extroverts or a very strong extrovert in your class. In a group training environment, and get them to power down just a little bit, because they often want to take the limelight. And it's subconscious, I think, sometimes with them. They don't realize that that's what they're doing, but because you're standing in front of the group, they feel like, well, I want to be the one standing in front of the group, and I want people to pay attention to me. You need to back them down and say, this is not your class. I actually have done that. I've said, Joe, are you ready to lead the class? Because apparently that's what you're trying to do. Or it was something a little bit more funny than that. That wasn't that funny. So I say, hey, Joe, come on, stand in front of the class and go ahead and lead the class. Apparently, I'm not doing a good enough job or something like that. I can't remember. I've done it a few times. It hits me at the moment and it makes perfect sense based on what it is they're doing. But that's one way of backing them down, is actually putting them in a position where they go, oh, I've pushed too far, right? And back them down. I've had to take people aside and say, listen, I need you to just back off just a little bit. You're being a little too much, and I think that it's irritating people, and it's hard for them to focus on what I have to say because you are trying to be too loud and boisterous, so I need you to back down. So you have to be a little bit of assertive. It's your class. You take charge, and you got to take care of those extroverts. Agreeableness, personality. They trust. They have compliance. Their altruism is strong. Straightforwardness, modesty, tender-mindedness, and they're very agreeable. They tend to trust others. They would never cheat on taxes, so to speak. They make people feel welcome. They're easy to satisfy. They just like being center of attention. Sympathize with the homeless is one of their what is commonality between somebody who has agreeableness. And so these people are cool to have in class. You often have to try to get them to motivate them to do something out of the norm. I often will call them out a little bit just to try to get them to be part of the class, because they can kind of get stuck where they're just they just kind of like to be, right? They don't want to be the center of attention. They don't want to try to do something a little bit more. But sometimes it's necessary because their dog requires them to do more. And when they have to do more, then the human being kind of backs off and doesn't want to do that thing. And so it's not allowing the dog to progress. So you may need to find a way to motivate people that are just way too agreeable and just kind of want to sink into the background and just kind of be present but not be too present. You may need to help them because it's going to help their dog. There's something that needs to happen with their dog, and they're not doing it. You need to do it in a way that's not, again, going to repel them and cause them not to come back. And then lastly, we have openness. These people are really into fantasy, really into aesthetics, feelings, actions, ideas, and values. They have a vivid imagination. They believe in the importance of art, experience emotions intensely, prefer variety of routine, like complex problems, tend to vote for liberals. We won't talk about that. So like complex problems and that kind of stuff. So they'll be happy to do more complex stuff. If you're not challenging them and you're just mundane, you may lose this type of person. Just like if you're not like that for the conscientious person who likes to get things done and likes chores. You want to challenge them and have things that that will kind of speak to their personality so that they stay engaged. And so you need to understand that type of person. Now, understanding that there may be some crossover where you have somebody that's slightly neurotic but yet they're agreeable or something like that. And so you're going to find little combinations. I really think it's easier to deal with these 5 than it is with the 16 that we talked about earlier. So I would really look into this. I would really find out who you are, right? Find out if you, I think that I'm like, so I said, what did I say? I said I was more of the extroversion type of personality. And I think that that's true, but if I wanted just to make sure, I would take a test. So I'm going to go ahead and try to put a link in the description. If you don't find it, then what you should do, hold on, let me look for that web page, and I'm going to kind of give it verbally here. Where did it go? It is called, I will find it, the International Personality Item Pool Representation of the NEOPI-R, the IPP or IPIP-NEO test to find out where you fit in the Big 5 inventory. All right, so I'm going to try to get that link for you and put it into the description, so you can take the tests that are related to this particular thing and find out who you are. I think it's good for you to know who you are so that you can figure out more about how it is that you, with your personality trait, are going to be able to deal with people of other personality traits or complete opposite personality traits. It's hard for somebody that's an introvert to deal with somebody who's an extrovert sometimes, right? And vice versa. And so you're going to have to figure that out. Again, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of these personalities and a lot of combinations of these personalities, and it's super important. And I think it helps to be able to identify them through just understanding, and again, to have success with them and their dog. Again, understanding that one personality trait may be fire and gasoline with another type of dog personality trait, and trying to figure out, okay, how can these two live together, and understanding and explaining to the human being why this may be problematic and why they need to address things a little bit differently. I think it's key. I think it's important. You should do it. Do a Google search, find out about personalities, understand them, learn them, and really identify right away. And again, journaling in your journal about, okay, I have this dog who's blah, 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 and I have a human who's blah, 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 and writing that down and looking at it and identifying it. In the beginning, you may need to come to your PDF that you downloaded from one of these sites, and you're going to identify who that person is, and then really try to hone in on who the dog is, and then go, wow, yeah, we have a red dog and with a green handler, and sometimes and I'm going into another thing that I've done for years that I'll probably talk about later on. But red knowing high personality, strong personality, green being very green and kind of like meh, and those two personalities don't really match together. So you're going to be able to identify that, come up with a plan of either how you're going to tell them that they need to get rid of the dog. That's kind of harsh, but maybe not. Or how to find another home for the dog. Or, okay, this is going to be difficult, but if you're in it, right? If you're in it to win it and you really love this dog and you want to make a difference in this dog's life, this is what it's going to take. And this is why. And you can show them, right? You can show them in your notes, in your journal. You can show them and say, hey, look up these personality traits and understand that these two things do not work together very easily, but it's going to take discipline on your part. It's going to take commitment, and you're going to have to find other people in your family that are going to be able to help you through this training program in order to make a difference in this dog's life. All right? So understanding is key. I hope you enjoyed this episode and realize that it's an important step for you to be involved in the study of human traits and personalities so that you can have success as a dog trainer. All right, I will see you at the next one. Again, this is Andy Falco with Falco Canine Academy and the Trained Dog Trainer Program. I will see you at the next, or hear you, or listen to you, or speak to you, whatever it is, at the next one. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Falco Canine Dog Talk, the show that helps you and your dog create a relationship of love and respect. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address at www.falcocanineacademy.com and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Falco Canine Academy. Follow us on twitter.com/Falco Canine Academy and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Falco143. And remember, if you've got questions for Andy, call the K9 line at 714-798-9961. That's 714-798-9961. This is a production of Falco Enterprises Incorporated. All rights reserved.